Today is like chapter 3 of Enemy Way Stories, and you're recording it for us. We're going to put it on the internet. You'll do the thing, Laura, of editing, and you'll help. Granddaughter there will help put it on the internet again, in the blog you built for us. And so this is part of the respect for my sister, Germaine Sitting Crow. This is following through with what she asked me to do. Well, actually, she didn't ask me. It was more like a directive, a way to behave. And for her, the way to behave was to share the medicine with the people, to help the people, and to stay on the clock. So what that means is that went against my sort of inclination, which is towards solitude and silence. And when she crossed over in October, I guess I had the idea that I was going to back off now, that I was going to do less. That was my idea. And it turns out there was something in place that has been leading me to do more. So this here that we're doing today, chapter 3, is part of that. Part of me following the intention. And I didn't realize that this one over here that I call granddaughter was fulfilling the directive from my older sister. You're pointing the direction for the how-to. When she crossed over, I got a little lost. And I didn't see how to keep going, and maybe I really didn't even want to keep going. I wanted to sort of slack off. And it turns out that for whatever reason, you were inspired to find a way for me to do what I do better, even though I acted like I wasn't particularly interested in it. And it's been helpful. So I can see, because of the relationship between people, it's sort of like you picked up where she left off. And I didn't see that until today when we were doing the Celebration Circle talk, that things were in harmony. And I had been praying for direction since she left. And it was right there, as usual, in front of me. And the other part of the story was from a female. She's female, obviously. So the other part of that is this talk that we're doing is her directive also, that to writing a book about this takes too long, and the internet, she understood, was a way to share with more people if they were interested. So the talk that we're doing today is part of her instruction, to make this available to the people, to share the medicine, to help the people, and to stay on the clock. So this is like chapter 3 of what we're calling Enemy Way. Now this started off in the beginning with the first Enemy Way story, the teaching story, where the old people taught the young people to look at the camp from a distance away and to look with the eyes of an enemy instead of the eyes of their own people, like if they were Lakota, they were the horse people, the plains people, to look back at the camp with the eyes of a crow, who was their enemy. And then they got a different view of the camp than they did as Lakota. They became very familiar with seeing things a certain way. So this whole project that the old ones instituted with the young ones was to shift their vision radically, to look at the world as an enemy. And then the next step in the process was to use the enemy as a teacher. What does the enemy see that you don't see? So where that's useful in our lifetime now, suppose we realize that in a relationship, let's say we're in a relationship, or we haven't finished a relationship, it really doesn't matter too much. But let's say we're in a relationship and we become aware that we react a lot to the other person in the relationship. If they say or do certain things, we react in a certain way. And it's almost like a program. It's automatic. And we could do that, and we could begin to feel resentful to the other person that we're in a relationship with, because we could begin to feel like a leaf at the mercy of the wind, that they do something and we react. So we might begin to feel resentful to that person. This medicine that Sister is insistent that we share with the people is that if I'm in relationship and I really do want to maintain the relationship, another orientation is to look at the person I'm reacting to as my teacher. The same way in the old story that the old people would have the young people look with the eyes of the enemy to make the enemy the teacher. So if I wanted to maintain a relationship, it might be worthwhile to use the person I'm in a relationship with as a teacher. The first part of that would be to see, have I made them enemy? That would mean, very simply, do I judge them? Do I close my heart to them? Am I critical of them? If they want to be close, do I want to be far away? Am I reactive to them? That's what we're talking about in this context of this medicine for every day, in a practical way. We're using our relationships with the world and with other people to see where we've become enemy. Now, practical way, because we're all old enough, you may have had occasion where somebody pulled in front of you, and you may have made them enemy in a heartbeat. So you're smiling. You understand what I mean? Okay. Tell me how you made them enemy. They pulled in front of you, and you did what to become an enemy to that person? Yeah. So that's part of what we're looking for, is how often do we do that? And do we do that with a lot of people? If you're a mommy raising a teenage daughter, you might find that you react to her. And everybody in here is old enough probably to know that we could say probably that you know the more reactive you are to your daughter, the less well it goes with her. That's safe to say? Okay. Could we agree on that the more reactive we are to people, the less well it seems to go? Unless I'm into warfare. You know? If I'm into being an enemy on purpose, well, being reactive will get you there, right? Okay. So enemy way and using the enemy as a teacher implies from this medicine, and Sister always emphasized this part, that Spirit's in charge, and Spirit puts the people and the situations in our life to teach us something, not as punishment or we did something wrong, not like karma, but more like opportunity. In some ways, this is different than Eastern medicine because enemy way says opportunity, not karma. Those are really different. Opportunity. So if I'm in relationship with a teenager and I'm very reactive to the teenager, I could become in a position where the kid looks like a pain in the butt to me. Yes? Okay, that's possible. So I could become an enemy with my own family. A lot of us have done that with our children. We become distant and our heart is closed. We become enemy. Or even with people we're living with. So this medicine says the first part of this is awareness, to look and see where that's true. How many people do I react to? How many people do I make enemy? How quick, if they pull in front of me, how quick have I made them an enemy? If my ex-spouse calls and wants something, how quickly do I react to that person? So these are the things we call stalking, to look for those things. Who and what do I react to? Working with the idea that whoever and whatever is in my life that I react to is a gift from Spirit. And when I'm really angry at the person I'm reacting to, it's tough to see that. So part of this sharing of the medicine is that is this part of the law here in this medicine. The Spirit never makes mistakes. Never, ever. Like if you're married, that you're married to the right person to help you grow spiritually, if that's what you want to do. That's what this whole medicine is contingent on this. If you want to grow spiritually, this medicine is built to do that. Now, what that means spiritually is less reactive in a practical way, more loving in a practical way, more peaceful, more us, more connected to other people, less separate. So that would begin inside, that we would begin to cultivate peace. And in this medicine, Sister always said that peace was the highest value. So the stalking of this, to find the gifts of the enemy, involves looking for who and what we react to. And we can use stories, teaching stories. We could even react to our teachers. That could happen. I used to react to Sister when she used to hit me with her fly swatter. She said, "Don't be stupid." She said, "I know you're a man, but just don't be stupid." Right. She would give me credit for trying, but she knew I was disabled because I was a man. That there were some things I didn't see very well. One of the things she saw very well was love always worked. That was operational for her. And a weird thing about this enemy way of looking at the world is if I begin to look at everybody I'm in an enemy position with, and I use the enemy as a teacher, I begin to fall in love with those people who were my teachers. I begin to care about them. I begin to do this thing in this book by a lady named Susan Trott. The book's called The Holy Man. I begin to do what that book talks about, treating everybody like a holy person. So the benefit of this medicine, the side effect, is I become more peaceful. For Sister, that was the intent, all of it, to be more peaceful. My own predilection in this medicine is that we notice that in medicine, Western medicine or physical health, the more we seem to pay attention to stalk ourselves, the healthier we seem to become, the less reactive. Now you would probably extrapolate and say, it seems obvious I'm very reactive, I might drink more whiskey. Or if I'm very reactive, I might smoke more cigarettes. Or I might spend more time in front of the TV. This is a way of saying to you, we understand in holistic medicine that being very reactive is not good for us. That when I judge other people, my serotonin goes down. When I judge other people, when I make somebody an enemy, and I don't see them as my spiritual teacher, I haven't gotten the gift yet, I'm hurting myself. If I judge you, my serotonin goes down. That's like a boomerang, right? Like I judge you, but I get hit in the forehead with my judgment. I create anger and resentment, and I create stuff in my body. I become my own enemy if I don't pay attention to who and what I'm judging. It's the weirdest thing. Have you ever heard you reap what you sow? This may be what that means. This might be it. So this medicine looks at that to be in judgment is not good for me. When I judge other people, I create anger and resentment. I change my blood profile. If the voice in my mind judges me, I create guilt and shame. That changes my blood profile too. So one of the gifts of the enemy that's really from the very beginning is if I become aware I'm judging somebody, like in that chair over there, that empty chair, there's somebody I'm judging. If I can become aware of that and tell myself the truth that I've made you an enemy, whoever you are, I begin to get the first gift if I'm aware. The first gift is I'm reacting to you in ways that are not good for me. This is not good for me. That's the first gift. The second gift is I might do this a lot. The third gift is a little deeper. Somebody suggested we talk about some of this as for people that love control. The third gift is a little deeper in terms of awareness. And these are gifts from the people I react to, the one I make enemy, right? The one I judge. When I'm judging, I've made the person an enemy. Is that okay? When I'm judging, I've made the person an enemy. I change my blood profile. I change my relationship with them. My heart is closed. And we can do this with the spouse. Okay, so if I begin to do this with this person and I become aware of this, the first gift is the awareness of what goes on with me when I judge. If you've been on the Jesus road, you understand that the Jesus man talked about judge not. He was very clear about that. Most of the stories I know, he was giving examples of judge not. So this is the same thing in a way. We look at when we judge and who we judge. The first gift is to be aware we react. The second gift is to be aware of the impact on our physical body and how much we do this. The third gift is at an even deeper level. We become aware that this person over here that I'm reacting to is teaching me in a very painful way that I am not in control of myself. They are. All they have to do is behave a certain way or say a certain thing, and I react like a leaf at the mercy of the wind. So part of this medicine is to tell ourselves the truth about this. Like you're in a relationship that I think you want to maintain, you might want to consider this part of the medicine and to look, if that were your significant other, what are the things this person does that you automatically react to? And we're not talking about your heart opens, you want to go over and give him a kiss. We weren't talking about those. Those are cool too. We have a different function for those. Right? We do a different kind of healing work with those awarenesses. We're talking about the ones where the relationship seems to suffer. So right now, if you wanted to, put somebody in that empty chair over there. Somebody that could be from your past. It could be somebody you're with right now. If you want to, imagine what they could do that you would react to. So this is part of the medicine. To use this person to teach you something about this. So for example, if you're in a really good mood and that person walks in the room and does something, tell me what happens to your good mood. Yes, you, yes. Tell me what happens to your good mood.
Well, in this particular case, the person I'm thinking of who I've discussed in the past, I wouldn't necessarily be angry or anything when she walks in. It's just a lot of other things she does and the way she lives her life that I have a problem with.
Yes.
But I mean, if she walks in the room, I'll give her a hug. She'll do love her.
Right, yeah.
I'll mess up your plan.
Right, we still might love the person very much, and our reactions to what they're doing might get in the way. We can start off loving with somebody and end up reacting so much. Right, that the love gets kind of lost. And Sister's solution was always to go directly to the love. Well, this part of the medicine is to look at what is my problem with loving. And it always seems to come down and I make somebody an enemy in some way. I judge them. Like if that's my spouse over there and I react to them, I might even judge them for my reacting to them. I might say to them, it's your fault I react like this. You're nodding. That makes sense to you? You could possibly do that? You could say it's his fault you react a certain way. Okay. Anybody else relate to that? You could say it's somebody else's fault you react a certain way. Okay. Have you done that before? Yeah, okay. That's called making an enemy that it's appropriate for the time and place. This medicine, like 500 years ago, they taught it by having the young people imagine literally being a crow and looking back at the Lakota camp. They had the young women talk also because the young men needed to hear the women's view of how the camp was set up. They needed to learn that. What was important to the women. So they needed all these different views. So the teaching then was set up that they got these different views. So part of this teaching today is to set that up. That if you have somebody in that chair that you're currently with, or maybe you used to be with, and there's still some reaction that you don't like, the first part of this medicine is the awareness. Do I blame you for my reaction? Do I hold you responsible for my reaction? So that brings us to the second part of the medicine. The first leg is awareness, the second is responsibility. To make this medicine useful, we have to be responsible. We have to say, I react to you. You're being who you are, right? Your spouse over there is definitely being who he is. He can't help it, actually. He can only be exactly how he is. Okay. So this medicine takes the spouse off the hook. Now, some of us might not be ready to do that. We might want to be right, you know. So there's this rumor in relationship work that we can be right or we can be close. So we get to choose. So in enemy way, we would look at who we're enemy with, who we react to, who we want to be different. When we do that, we've made them an enemy when we want them to be different. We've done that with an act of judgment. Judgment is a thought pattern that we were taught. It's not our fault. It's our responsibility to change it if we don't like the results. So enemy way, we look for people we react to, and then we look for our judgments of them. What do we react to? So in a practical way, if you have somebody you could put in that chair that you react to, the next step in this medicine is stalking, is tracking, following the trail. What could they do that I would react to? What could they do that I'm on automatic? I'm predictable. Now, some of us carry this to an extreme. A gentleman came in here, and he had high blood pressure. My partner sent him over, Dr. Shane, and he reacted to the president on TV. He didn't have trouble with blood pressure at work during the day, and when he came home and he started watching CNN and the president and Fox News, he got really, really upset, and his blood pressure went way up. So he had, well, you guys are laughing. This story makes sense to you? Okay. So he had made the president an enemy. And when the president came on TV, he had a serious reaction to the president. And he had internalized his reaction. So physically it wasn't good for him. Emotionally it wasn't good for him because he was real angry. And then he was different with his family at night. He wasn't loving and kind and patient. He was angry. Spiritually, it made him a leaf at the mercy of the wind. That he could come home and be looking forward to seeing his family, and the president could come on TV, and all of that went away. He was so reactive. So, a lot of us want to blame the world for our reactions. We want to say, if so-and-so was different, I wouldn't react. That's a guaranteed way to keep them as an enemy and to not get the gift. So it might be time to talk about the gifts of the one we make an enemy. At a very practical level, left brain, cognitive, didactic level, if I'm in relationship with a person and I'm willing to look at what I react to and take responsibility for my reactions, then I have opportunity to use the person as a teacher. And if I really believe the Spirit is in charge of everything, then this is a person that's supposed to be in my life right now. And I'm supposed to be aware of my reaction. And then make a decision. Like, you have to decide if you like your reactions to your husband. And if you decide there's some reactions you don't like, you would be using enemy way if you decided to look for those, what he did and what you reacted to. So a way to talk about this in a practical level, getting the gift, is with a teaching story. And we used this story this morning at Celebration Circle. Well, we talked about a young woman, a 15-year-old that had come in here, that had lived in Houston and got moved to Bandera with some relatives. She had gotten in a fight in Houston, and it turned out to be physical, and the law was called, and charges were pressed, and the grandparents shipped her to Bandera, hoping it was, less rowdy in Bandera. Maybe not, but that was the hope of the grandparents in Houston. And the young lady had to go back to Houston to show up in the trial, the criminal trial. And so the week before she was supposed to go, I saw her like on Friday, Thursday or Friday. She spent the whole week fussing about the trial. She didn't enjoy her meals, and she didn't get along well with her friends, and she flunked a math test, and math is her best subject, and she just was kind of off all the time. And when we talked about it, she was very straightforward about it. She said that she kept thinking about this other girl, this other young woman that she got in a fight with, that she was going to see her. So she was aware enough to know that her mind was in the future. Her body was still in Bandera, but her mind was in the future. Now, medically, like my partner next door over there, we call that anxiety. Medically, they call it anxiety. But she was anxious about what was going to happen in the future. And she was aware enough, she understood that her mind was in the future, and where her mind was her responsibility. However, knowing that didn't change anything for her. So information didn't change anything. She knew it did not serve her well to have her mind in the future, reacting to this young woman. She knew the other young woman was 274 miles away. She knew that she flunked the math test because she was in the future preoccupied. So in a way, her own mind was her enemy. Well, rather than fighting with her mind, what we decided to do is to put the other young lady in the chair over there. Like if I'm sitting here and the young woman's sitting in that chair over there next to Mike, the other woman in Houston sitting right over there. And every time she looked at her over there, her stomach got upset. She upset her stomach is a better way to talk about it. And she did what she called, got mad. I think she meant angry. She got angry. And she said, that girl pisses me off. That girl makes me angry. Whenever I think about her, that bitch ruins my day. That's what she said. And she believed that because that's the kind of family she grew up in, where people said, I'm upset and it's your fault. She grew up with that. You understand, this is not her fault. Her family of origin that she came from and her society or culture says things like that. I'm upset and it's your fault. Can you ever think about a time you may have said that to somebody? I'm upset and it's your fault. Well, we say that's the opposite of taking responsibility. We say that's judging, you did something wrong, and playing victim. Oh, poor me. My feelings are hurt and it's your fault. Well, she was doing this with this other young woman in Houston. So I went over there and I turned the chair around like the back was to her, and her anger went away and her stomach was not upset. Just like that. And then I turned the chair around again so she saw the girl in her mind's eye, and her stomach was upset and she said she was mad again. So I turned the chair around the other way with the back of the chair to her, and her anger went away and her stomach wasn't upset anymore. And she said, that girl makes me sick. And I said, be real clear about this. She said, well, I said, yeah, the chair's empty. You're doing this. You're blaming her in Houston. But right now, she's teaching you a very important lesson. This one you're mad at in Houston, this enemy of yours, is teaching you something. Let's point at it. Let's look at it a little bit. She said, I don't get it. Started calling the girl names. And I said, well, that's it right there. All you have to do is picture her, and you go into hell. Your stomach is upset, you want to vomit, and you're full of anger. You're what you call mad. And if I turn the chair away, she disappears. All that goes away. So this young woman over there is teaching you, number one, you're a leaf at the mercy of her whim. Number two, you can do this with an empty chair. You can go from happy into hell with your mind, making a picture in your mind. You can make yourself sick with your pictures. And she got to it. At 15 years old, she got to this, which is remarkable, like evolution. Can you imagine being aware of this at 15 years old? That I create my reality with my thoughts? That the chair was empty? Imagine somebody having taught you that at age 15. So for me, that's an act of spirit. That's what Sister was up to with this stuff. Sharing the medicine. That's part of the medicine. Sometimes it's hidden for people. But we're talking about this because it's one of the big gifts of the enemy. This other girl, this other young woman, was giving her this huge gift. And it was hard for her to see because she grew up in a family that we reacted to each other all the time. Hell, even though they were 700 miles apart, they were still reacting to each other. If they got on the phone in 15 minutes, they were screaming at each other. Even though they're 700 miles apart. Now that's reactive. But people have told me if my ex gets on the phone, he could be in Alaska, and he could ruin my day. In Alaska. I don't even have to see him. All I have to do is imagine him. So she got it. She got this huge gift that she could create illness in her body, anger as an emotion. And she could do it with an empty chair. The other gift she got is she should also not do that if she woke up to it. She got it that the chair was empty. She also got it how many times she'd done this in this lifetime. How many people at age 15 she could put in that chair and say, they pissed me off, they ruined my day, they hurt my feelings. Already at age 15, she had a bag full of people that she was unfinished with, that she was enemies with. That all we had to do was put them in the chair and she reacted physically, emotionally, mentally. So we're thinking this had to be a spiritual issue for her. In this medicine, the sister emphasized this medicine a lot. The physical component is really important. My own interest is in medicine, how people heal themselves using this kind of medicine. This indigenous medicine that looks at process rather than diagnosis. So this young 15-year-old lady was looking at process. How did she create hell in her body with an image of somebody in a chair? But in order to do that, she had to do this really brave thing. And this is what makes this medicine a challenge. This is why people say the red road is narrow. She had to be willing to say, at 15 years old, this was like a miracle to me. And she was willing to say, you're not pissing me off. It's not you. I'm doing it. She, at 15 years old, she was willing to take responsibility. She was willing to give up playing victim. Instead of saying, you're doing it to me, she was willing to say, I'm doing it. I'm reacting to you, and I'm responsible for my reaction. Hope you can see what a big deal that was. To grab a hold of that and take that responsibility. To unhook the other young woman from guilt and shame and judgment. To remove all of that. As a matter of fact, she moved into the position of being grateful to the other young woman. She showed her something she wasn't learning in school. That she could create hell with her thoughts. And this young woman was forcing her to look at that. So I saw her the week after, and she told me in the courtroom she felt almost happy. And she wasn't mad at the girl anymore. She wished that they'd never fought. They fought over a young man, so that was the next guy we had in the chair. You can imagine that, right? That the girl was part of it. And then the young man they fought over, she had a lot of reaction to him, too. So she's learning this stuff at age 15. So the gift of the enemy for her was at several levels of awareness, several levels of a gift, deeper and deeper. The deepest level of the gift was that this person has power. She has a huge amount of personal power. She has so much personal power that she can make herself sick with a thought. And that she's been blaming other people for that. So then she couldn't have the power. So part of what is essential at this part of the medicine to share with you all is that particular point right there. As long as she said that person pissed me off, or ruined my day, or hurt my feelings, as long as she held on to that view, she could not get the gift of personal power. That view kept her from going through the gate, so to speak. Blaming somebody else for my reactions keeps me at a certain level of awareness. I can't go any farther than that unless I'm willing to say, I react to you. And maybe Spirit put you in my life to teach me about my reaction. Maybe actually you're my spiritual teacher. Like those little Lakota boys would learn that the crow, the enemy, was a teacher. They were teaching them how to look at the camp in a whole different way. And they begin to honor their enemy. It's part of the tradition. You honor the enemy as a good teacher. So that is part of this medicine. Part of the gift from the enemy is the gift of power. We can learn about our personal power. It's in the inverse. We've learned to use our power in a crazy way. This young woman has learned to use her power to create hell. She could look at a picture of that girl in her mind, imagine her, she's in a chair, and create hell without even being aware that she was creating it. Because she had the belief that she inherited from other people, her family of origin, that the other girl created her feelings. So an important part of this medicine is, can you see that it's not her fault? Can you see that she's blameless? She was taught to say, you ruined my day, you hurt my feelings. If you were different, I'd be happy. She grew up in a family where maybe even the parents said to the children, if you were different, I'll be happy. In my own family of origin, there are some memories of my mother saying to my father, these kids drive me crazy. And she wasn't happy when she was saying it. She was unhappy. So we kind of got the message as little people that we were responsible for how the big people felt. That has some implications for a person. They could tend to be rebellious. They could not want to take that on and end up really, really rebellious. Or they could end up too submissive and really believe they're responsible for other people's feelings. That's a heavy message to give to a child. So this medicine looks at all this kind of stuff. And the way we find it is by what we react to. And we find that what we react to in our relationship with our relatives. Some of us have the idea that we could go sit on the mountain and just be away from people and we could get really holy up there. Well, the difficulty is we wouldn't be looking at the stuff Spirit sends to us. We wouldn't be taking the gifts of the Spirit, the gifts of the enemy. So this enemy way, this medicine, It's designed to help us look at what we react to, because there's a physical component, an emotional component, a mental component, and we think that means it's always a spiritual issue. So we begin to look for who and what we react to. We begin to orient ourselves that Spirit loves me and Spirit puts people in my life to show me who and what I react to. This is not bad karma. It's not a mistake. I didn't piss God off and God's getting even. None of that stuff is going on at all. As a matter of fact, the inverse is true. So this young woman, this 15-year-old, used this other woman she was an enemy with as a teacher of something that she did not learn at home, and she was not learning in school, and she wasn't learning in church. And we would pray that that's where she would learn it. That her thoughts created her reality. Probably you can think about the education that you've had, and you might not have had that included in your education, that your thoughts create your reality. And that your thoughts are so powerful, they create your blood profile too. And they affect the immune system and the cortisol and the homocysteine and the blood pressure and the heart rate. That thoughts create emotions. So this young woman got this other beautiful gift from the teacher, from her enemy. That whenever she had critical, judgmental thoughts, she created the emotion of anger. She created that emotion. And she'd been blaming that on the other girl, and the other girl wasn't even here. The chair was empty. So she took responsibility that she created that. She also created fear. She said that the other girl scares her. When we got to it after a while, she began to say, I create fear with my thoughts about this girl, and I've been blaming her. And then she found thoughts where she felt like a victim of this girl. Oh, poor me. And all these things she could do with an empty chair. And she'd been wanting to blame the other person. So these are the gifts she kept getting, that she creates her reality with her thoughts. In holistic medicine, we look at it in a more simple way. We say that thoughts create emotions. Emotions create feelings in the body if the emotions are ignored. And feelings in the body, if they're ignored, can create symptoms. And symptoms can create disease if they're ignored. So an example would be the gentleman that was real angry at the president was always criticizing the president. His thoughts were critical. The emotion that the thoughts created was anger. Okay? The emotion that was created by the thoughts was anger. Now remember, the president was like 900 miles away, right? He was a long ways away. The emotion was anger. When he suppressed and repressed the anger, trying to be civil around his family, he created feelings in his body of tension, high blood pressure, lowered the immune system, his serotonin went down. Symptoms began to appear. His doctor might diagnose him as hypertension. So symptoms can run into disease. If he chooses to ignore this, to act like it's unimportant, that he's angry as soon as he sees somebody on TV, to honor that, to act like that's really important. It's a whole different orientation. This medicine asks us to honor our reactions, not hide them. To look for where and what we react, so we can get the gift of the teacher. We can get the gift of the enemy. If we don't honor our reactions, if we try to hide them, if we try to lie about them and not tell ourselves the truth that we're reacting, we don't get the gift. And it appears, many people have said this, and it appears to be true, that if I don't get the gift, it repeats. Have you ever heard that? That it keeps repeating? Right. So I could change relationships, but I may have the same issues with the new person. Or I could change jobs and I may have the same issues with the new job. So if that makes sense to you, consider the possibility that Spirit, on the other hand, is sending you something to try to show you something, to share with you. And it's interesting, if you decide that this medicine has something for you, it's usable in the dream world also. Like whoever shows up in my dream that I react to, that's the one that's trying to teach me something. The one in my dream I react to the most is the one that's showing me my reactions. And the other part that's interesting about dreams is I'm the one that makes up the dream. So I put that person in there, and I had them play a part, a particular part. I had them say certain things and do certain things and act a certain way. So if I have dreams that we call nightmares, I know who to talk to about who's making them up. That would be me. And if I take responsibility, if I become aware that I'm creating my dreams, and I take responsibility that I'm the creator of these dreams, then I begin to move into a position of responsibility by saying, I have a message I'm trying to get across. I have something I'm trying to show this person, and they won't see it in the daytime, so I sneak up on them at night, and I make it in this movie that they can't get away from. They call dreams. Because they can't just turn the dream off in the middle. They're in the middle of the dream. So this responsibility means if I'm at war, if I make my dreams an enemy, I'm not getting the gift of the dream. So let me check. Does this make sense to people? Is this clear? Yes? Maybe? This is good. So we can make enemies anytime, any place, huh? So part of this medicine is to look at how we make enemies and who we make enemies with, and to take responsibility. Awareness and responsibility. And then we get the gift if we're willing to do that. So I want to remind you that 15-year-old, the gift she got, that she can create a reality with her thoughts. She could do it with an empty chair. And she'd been blaming somebody else. And she also got this other huge awareness that when she was blaming somebody else, was saying that girl pissed her off, she stayed in the victim role. She was a victim of that girl. And the victim feels resentful. If you've ever felt like a victim, you might remember that you felt resentful. So, whenever she set it up, where she said with her words, that other girl pisses me off, she was creating a reality with her words. That other girl, the hand up above, pisses me off, the hand down below. So she said with her words, she was learning the power of words and thoughts. She said with her words, I'm a victim. She said that. Nobody else said that. She said that. So she was using words as magic. She was creating with her words. And she wasn't aware of it because she came from a family that used words that way all the time. So she didn't get the correlation between her words and what reality she created. When she said, that girl pissed me off, she said, I am a leaf at the mercy of her wind. She said that. With her words, she set up that reality. So part of what she learned when we were exploring this is that she might not ever want to say that again. She decided at 15 years old, for the rest of her life, she might not ever want to say, you pissed me off, you ruined my day, you hurt my feelings. She might not ever want to say that again. Because she said, as a very aware person at age 15, she hates being a leaf at the mercy of the wind. She hates feeling like a victim of people. She hates feeling like other people could control her. And it's important for her to be in control of herself. That's really what she's coming here for. So she's understanding from her enemy, the teacher, that a really big statement about her control is how easily she can be controlled by other people. So that pointed to her in a very strong way that she was not in control of herself. And she wanted control of herself, which is a legitimate control. It's not trying to control other people. It's certainly not trying to hurt other people. It's the intent or the desire to be in control of myself, that I can be with other people without reacting to them. Now it's clear, everyone here is old enough that you've probably tried to not react to certain people. And you probably have experience in how that works. This medicine is almost the opposite of that. This medicine uses the metaphor of stalking to look for who and what I react to, and how many people I do that with. How many people do I react to? So the young lady from Bandera was telling me that she did this with a whole bunch of people. That she says a whole bunch of people piss her off or ruin her day or hurt her feelings. And she said to me, if you can imagine a 15-year-old saying this, that means none of that's true. None of those people piss me off. She said, I hate to give that up. So being curious, I said, tell me, you hate to give that up. Tell me what that means. And she said, if I give up saying other people hurt me, or piss me off, or ruin my day, I don't know who I'll be. I thought, what an amazing kid for age 15. Some of us are already at the age where we're thinking, it might be good to give this crap up before I cross over. And she's starting a journey at age 15, where she's considering that her reactions to people is more important to her. For her to become aware of her reactions. And the people she reacts to the most are the ones she calls enemies. And she's becoming aware that she can use the enemy as a teacher. She can get a gift. So she has a choice to go through this lifetime in an adversarial position, that the world is a hostile place. Or she can go through the world in terms of opportunity. When she received the gift of power from this other young woman, she felt aggressive, but not against other people. She felt aggressive in terms of going after what she wanted. Where she was curious at how many people she did this kind of dance with, where she would say to people, you pissed me off or you ruined my day. She wanted to know how many people did she feel a leaf at the mercy of the wind. So she was busy gathering up gifts from all of these people. And at 15, she said she had this huge awareness that as she began looking at this, like the enemy had a gift for her, at the end of our session, and what we decided to talk about more next time if she wants to, because she might change her mind, that she had made enemies of her parents who had died in a car accident when she was a year old. But even though she said she loved them, she was pissed off at them. And she said that she talked to a whole bunch of other people about this, and she knew she shouldn't be pissed off. However, the truth was, she realized that she was angry. She had a reaction to these people that weren't alive. And because this kid is really quick, really an amazing person, she said to me, in a question, which was really a statement. Do you think being angry at them could influence my relationships with other people? I said, yeah, it's possible. What do you think? She said, I might have trouble with authority. I said, yeah, that's possible. That's possible. So the next time we're going to get together, she realized that she had made enemies of her parents, meaning she was angry at them, and that this was sort of unfinished. So this amazing young person was looking at where she was an enemy with people and using it to teach her. And she was curious enough to ask, what happens if I'm no longer enemy with my parents? If I forgive them for dying? It sounds really absurd, but you understand she had a really good point. If she forgives her parents for dying, how will her life be? So that's another really great gift that this kid got from somebody. Well, she's not a kid, that's not proper. This young woman. Because she's sure more advanced at age 15 than I was recently. Recently. That's a huge level of awareness. So this young woman we're using as a teaching story, where how we can use the people we see as enemies as a teacher, or we can stay enemies, and we get to choose that. This medicine is a really old way of using what Spirit puts in our life as a teacher, assuming Spirit doesn't make mistakes, that it's all a gift. And it doesn't matter whether we're married to the person or divorced from the person, or the person's alive or the person's dead. People can even be attached to other things. People can be attached to money, or cars, or trucks. So enemy way, to get the gift of the enemy, the first awareness is we agree with Spirit that what's going on in my life is what there is for me to look at, and Spirit cares about me. This is an opportunity for me. So this medicine also says if we do that, we become curious, as the young lady became curious. So she began to use her reaction. She didn't lie about her reactions or try to be good or try to be sweet. She told the truth. I react. And then she got at a deeper level. I say you piss me off. So we began to get into how she uses language, how she creates a reality, how she's a leaf at the mercy of the wind. Many different levels of this here. And she became aware that she could create a reality with pictures in her mind. And the creation was so strong that she could make herself physically sick with her creation. She was completely unaware of how powerful she is until she looked at it in this way. So that was a big gift of the enemy. This woman understood at a very deep physical level how powerful she is. A huge gift. And because she's a very aware person, she asked the question, what would it be like if all that power was used for me instead of upsetting me? So, this young person was a good teacher for me. She was getting the teaching from the lady in Houston, and I was getting the teaching from her. She was showing me how many different levels this can go. And the greatest teaching I got out of watching her was her awareness of how much power she had to create a physical reality. She had enough power in her imagination and her thoughts, whatever you describe it, to create a physical reality in her body. She had the power of creation, and she never knew that she had it. It was disguised in her reactions. So instead of trying to make her reactions go away, we honor her reaction. Instead of doing the psychology thing of explaining her reactions or analyzing her reactions, we actually emphasized her reactions. And we explored her reactions. And she decided from the inside that she no longer ever wanted to say, "You pissed me off, you ruined my day, I'm a leaf at the mercy of the wind." She was excited about the possibility of living life without being a leaf at the mercy of the wind, to other people, to the weather, to the economy, to events. That's what we call freedom. This medicine is based in the concept of freedom. And it's using our relatives to help us find where we're reactive and we're not free. So before we end up, I want to ask if there's any questions about this. The intent of doing this today is to share this as teacher directed, and also my own part is to be as clear as possible. So I want to find out, was this clear for you? Yes? Tell me if this was clear for you.
Yes, it's clear. I'm beginning to think that the only way not to feel like a victim, though, is to, as you say, look at spirit as conducting everything. Because random things can happen unassociated necessarily with people.
No, just with spirit.
But if you know spirit allowed it,
or helps create it, yeah.
Then you shouldn't feel like, you can't really feel like a victim.
Well, you can, it just doesn't serve us much. It doesn't provide any peace at all.
No, but if your outlook is that spirit brought it, and spirit is good, and spirit loves you, then to think you're a victim ignores all that.
That's correct. It's tough to remember that. Recently, a young woman that I knew was in a ceremony, and she had an ant crawl in her ear when she lay down, which was very unpleasant. Got the ant out. And what she began to explore this as an act of spirit, is she frequently lets stuff come into her ear she really doesn't want. She listens to things she really doesn't want to listen to. So she decided, lying down at this ceremony and having the ant crawl in her ear, was an act of spirit. It wasn't bad luck. The spirit was connected to everything.
Well, now, I was always puzzled by the term, the sacrifice of Thanksgiving. Because you normally wouldn't think of Thanksgiving as being a sacrifice, but he says, give thanks in all things.
Wow.
And that can be a sacrifice.
Well, in this medicine, that's what sister would say, that everything, even the ant in the ear, is a gift of spirit, or even the heart difficulty, or even the lower back pain is a gift of spirit. Frequently, we call it bad luck, or karma, or God's pissed off at me, or some other victim story. Right. Yeah, to be grateful for back pain or an ant in the ear, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. To agree that that's an act of spirit is challenging, for sure. Well, for me, to see everything as an act of spirit. Right. However, this young lady I was talking about was able to see that her interaction with this other female in Houston was a gift to her from spirit. She wants to believe that body, mind, and spirit are connected. She's just kind of getting that view. But she was seeing it as a gift, as an act of spirit. So I want to check. Anybody have any questions about this? Hopefully the intent was it was clear. The other intent is to share with you all that this road is not simple. Well, it's simple, but it's not easy. It's like push-ups. They're really simple. You don't need equipment. You don't need a push-up coach. You don't need to join a gym. You can do them anywhere, and they're not easy. So to look at everything as an act of spirit seems to be a challenge. To treat everybody as a holy person seems to be a challenge. So we run into our judgments if we decide to do something like that. We run into our spiritual teachers. The ones we have trouble making a holy person could be our spiritual teachers. So if nobody has any questions, then we'll go ahead, Mike.
Just a statement.
Okay.
A couple of thought processes went through my head as you talked today and last time when I read your first chapter. I get it and I understand it. And two things came up that I've had to deal with that were my that were a product of just like the girl was. But the other thing, I guess the real point that I wanted to make, I've been reading and listening, and I kept thinking, where is this going to go? And at the end, you said the word freedom. You know, you deal with the issues that you can become free. And that was the word I was wanting to hear. But I didn't know what the word was. But the word was, that was the word freedom. So that didn't make a lot of sense, but it's in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of the way this was taught to me is rather indirect. Like in the beginning, the teachers that taught me, even the sister there, never talked about freedom in the beginning. It was something that I couldn't understand as a concept in the beginning.
Right, I don't think that you could until you dealt with the other stuff first.
Yeah, I had too many reactions to look at. And after a while, as I began to clear them, she began to talk about freedom, and other teachers began to talk about freedom. And first it was freedom from reacting, which was more peaceful. And then it was freedom from seeing the world a particular way, which was more peaceful than the other even. And then it was freedom from having stories about the world going on in my thinking. And that was a deeper level of freedom. So my beginning idea of freedom wasn't it. There was more. And then as we go on, there seems to be more and more. One of the experiences we had in literature, Carlos Castaneda wrote about his experiences with a Toltec sorcerer named Don Juan Matus. And in the first book, he said, this is going on. In the second book, he said, the first book was all wrong. This is what's really going on. And that went on for about 15 books, where he said, what I thought was going on, it actually wasn't going on. This other deeper thing was going on. And I didn't see it, and I couldn't see it until I got to here. And then I could see that this was going on. So this journey is a lot like that. My misconception when Sister crossed over was that I was going to do less, that it wasn't going to get deeper. And as usual, I was wrong about that. Things were set into place to do more of this. So what we've done today is part of the doing more. So hopefully this was useful to you all. And we're going to put it on the internet with some help. And maybe it'll be used to somebody who listens to it. So thank you all for helping today. When you come here and help me do this, you're helping me fulfill a directive. And I'm grateful to do that. You're helping me understand what I understand. Because sometimes I don't know what I know until I do something like this. So this is helpful in that way. So, if it's okay before we leave, I'd like to make a circle.